The young courier had always known life wasn't going to be easy. Born into a poor family, he had learned early that nothing came for free. Each day, he woke up early in the morning, dreading the long hours of work ahead. He worked tirelessly, making deliveries all over the city. On foot, rain or shine, he would rush from one place to the next, carrying heavy packages that barely paid for his basic needs. His shoes were worn out, and his clothes were simple, but he never complained. He had no choice but to keep pushing forward. The streets were tough, and life even tougher. Despite his circumstances, there was something hopeful in his heart. He dreamed of something better, something more than this life of struggle. He believed that if he worked hard enough, something would change. Perhaps one day he would make enough money to leave the cramped apartment he lived in, or maybe even own something of his own. Anything that could offer him a sense of freedom. But deep down, he knew that with every passing day, the future seemed a little more out of reach. The streets he walked through were often crowded, filled with people hurrying to their destinations. The city was alive, but it was also harsh and unforgiving. Some days felt longer than others, especially when the weather was terrible. When it rained, he had to dodge puddles and keep his packages dry, all while trying to avoid the traffic and angry drivers. The young courier knew the risks of his job, but he had no other choice. This was the life he had to live, and he made the best of it. He had learned to be careful, to be cautious about the people he interacted with. There were moments when he could sense trouble lurking in the air, when the vibe of the street changed, and something felt off. But he had learned to move quickly and stay unnoticed, keeping his head down, doing his job without drawing attention. Even with the challenges, he tried to stay focused. He had learned to adapt to his surroundings, and he knew that staying out of trouble was the key to surviving in this city. Still, there were days when his exhaustion caught up with him. The late nights, the early mornings, the endless walking. It all took a toll. He didn't have much energy left by the end of each day, but he kept going, reminding himself that someday things would get better. And in those quiet moments when he sat alone, eating the simplest of meals, he let himself dream. He imagined a life where he didn't have to worry about where his next paycheck would come from. A life where he didn't have to rush to make ends meet. As he made his way through the crowded streets one morning, the courier didn't know that his life was about to change. He was just another person in the crowd, carrying out his daily routine, thinking that the day would unfold as any other. But as he stepped forward, unaware, something unexpected was about to happen. Something that would completely alter the course of his life. Little did he know, today was the day that everything would change forever. The young courier continued walking through the city as the sun began to rise higher, casting a warm glow over the streets. He had just finished a delivery when he noticed something unusual ahead. There was a commotion near a narrow alleyway, and at first, he wasn't sure what was going on. People were gathering around, but there was something about the situation that felt off. His instincts told him to keep walking, to avoid getting involved. It wasn't his business after all. But then, his gaze locked onto a woman in the middle of the scene, and everything in his world seemed to freeze. She was standing there, clearly distressed, surrounded by a few men who appeared to be harassing her. She looked out of place in the rough part of the city. Her clothes were neat and elegant, her face pale with fear. The woman was trying to hold her ground, but it was obvious that the men were intimidating her, their words sharp and angry. The young courier felt a sudden rush of protectiveness toward her, something he hadn't expected to feel. He was just a poor courier, barely able to take care of himself, but he couldn't stand by and do nothing. Without really thinking, the courier moved closer, trying to make himself as inconspicuous as possible. He knew he had to act quickly. The woman's eyes met his, and in that brief moment, it seemed like she was silently pleading for help. His heart raced. He didn't have any special skills or weapons to defend her, but he had quick reflexes and an idea. He knew that a direct confrontation wouldn't work, so he came up with a plan on the spot. He darted to the side, picking up an empty bottle from the ground and tossing it toward a nearby trash can with a loud clink. The men in the group turned their heads at the noise, distracted for a split second. That was all he needed. He stepped in front of the woman, positioning himself between her and the men. "Hey, you guys got a problem," he called out, trying to sound confident, though his voice wavered slightly. The men looked at him, sizing him up. They didn't take him seriously, of course. He was just a young courier, probably with no experience in a real fight. But the distraction worked, giving the woman just enough time to step away from the group. She moved behind him, clearly shaken but grateful for the momentary escape. The courier could feel his heart pounding in his chest, his mind racing, but he kept his focus. He couldn't let these men get any closer. For a moment, the group seemed confused, unsure of what to do with this unexpected interference. The courier knew it wouldn't take long for them to get angry. He had to think fast. He needed to get the woman out of there, but how? His eyes darted around, searching for a safe route. Then he saw it, an old delivery van parked on the corner of the alley. Without hesitation, he grabbed the woman's hand and pulled her toward the van. "Come on, this way," he urged, his voice calm but insistent. The woman didn't hesitate. She followed his lead as he guided her toward the safety of the van. The men began to move in their direction, but by the time they noticed, the young courier had already opened the van door. They jumped inside, the courier slamming the door shut just in time. Panting, he leaned against the door, his breath coming in short gasps. The woman was safe, for now. But as the young courier looked at her, he couldn't help but feel a strange sense of accomplishment and a deep sense of responsibility. He had done something he never thought he would, something that had put his own safety at risk. But in that moment, it had all been worth it. The van's engine hummed softly as they sat in the back, the sounds of the city fading away as they took a moment to catch their breath. The young courier could still feel his heart pounding, the adrenaline from the confrontation making his hands shake slightly. The woman beside him was quiet, her eyes wide with shock, still processing what had just happened. He glanced at her, unsure of what to say. She had been so calm during the entire ordeal, even though she had clearly been frightened. He couldn't help but admire her composure. "Are you okay?" he asked gently, his voice full of concern. He wasn't sure if she would even hear him. Her mind seemed to be somewhere far away. But when she finally looked at him, her gaze softened. For a brief moment, their eyes met, and he felt a quiet understanding pass between them. She wasn't just a stranger he had helped. She was a person, and a person who, for whatever reason, had found herself in a dangerous situation. "Yes," she said quietly, her voice trembling slightly. "I think I'm okay. Just shaken up." Her words hung in the air, as if she was trying to convince herself more than him. The young courier nodded, trying to offer a reassuring smile. "It's over now. You're safe." She returned a small, grateful smile, but there was something else in her expression, a mix of confusion and curiosity. "Why did you help me?" she asked, her voice soft but clear. "You didn't have to. You could have just walked away." The courier shifted uncomfortably in his seat, unsure of how to explain. He wasn't a hero. He was just a guy trying to survive in a world that often felt like it was out to get him. But something about her situation had tugged at him. He couldn't stand by and do nothing. "I don't know," he said honestly. "It just didn't feel right to walk away." The woman looked at him for a long moment, as if weighing his words carefully. "I'm really grateful," she said finally. "You probably saved my life." The courier felt a wave of warmth at her words, but he quickly shrugged it off. "I just did what anyone would do." She shook her head, her expression softening. "Not everyone would. Most people would have kept walking. I'm lucky you were here." He didn't know how to respond to that. He wasn't used to receiving such gratitude, especially not from someone like her. She was clearly well off, well dressed, and her life seemed so different from his own. Yet here they were, thrown together by fate in a way he couldn't quite understand. They sat in silence for a few moments, the weight of the situation settling in. The woman's eyes moved to the window, watching the city pass by, but her thoughts seemed far away. The courier, too, felt a quiet stir within him. He had always been focused on survival, on getting by, but something about this encounter made him question everything. He had always lived day to day, never expecting anything more. But now, there was a sense of possibility. Something had shifted, and it wasn't just his life that had been changed by this unexpected encounter. It was hers too. Finally, the woman spoke again. "I don't even know your name," she said with a smile, as if remembering something important. "I'm sorry. I'm Mia." The courier blinked, surprised by the sudden shift in the conversation. He had almost forgotten that they hadn't exchanged names. "I'm Alex," he replied, his voice a little less unsure now. "Thank you again, Alex," she said, her tone warm and sincere. "You have no idea how much this means to me." For the first time, Alex felt a sense of pride in himself. He hadn't just helped her out of a dangerous situation. He had done something meaningful. In that moment, he realized that maybe, just maybe, his life could be different from the one he had known so far. And the strange twist of fate that had brought him to this point might be the first step towards something he had never dared to dream about. In the days that followed, life seemed to settle back into its usual routine for Alex. He continued working as a courier, delivering packages through the city, but something had shifted inside him. He couldn't stop thinking about Mia and the strange bond they'd formed in such a short amount of time. Her gratitude, her warmth, it all stayed with him long after that day. He had never expected to be a hero, but in a small way, he felt like he had done something important, something that made him feel like his life mattered. Then, just as he was starting to put the whole incident behind him, something unexpected happened. One afternoon, while Alex was sitting at a small cafe during his break, he received a call. It was an unknown number, but something told him he should answer. "Hello," he said, holding his phone to his ear, unsure of what to expect. "Alex," a familiar voice said, and his heart skipped a beat. "Mia?" he asked, surprised but relieved to hear from her. "Yes, it's me," Maya replied, her voice sounding lighter than it had been that day in the alley. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." Alex shook his head, even though she couldn't see him. "No, not at all. It's good to hear from you. I've been thinking about what you did for me," she said, her voice soft but earnest. "I've been wondering if there's anything I can do to repay you. You've helped me when no one else would have." Alex felt a sudden rush of humility. He didn't want anything in return for helping her, but he knew that Mia was the kind of person who liked to show her gratitude. "You don't owe me anything," he said quickly. "I just did what anyone would do." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Maya spoke again. "I don't think it was just anyone. You were the one who stepped up when it mattered. So I've been thinking about how I could help you. Maybe I can offer you something. A job." Alex raised an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. "A job?" "Yes, I know it sounds sudden, but hear me out," she said. "I work at a business firm. It's not the most glamorous job, but it pays well, and I think you'd be good at it. I can get you an interview, Alex. You've got potential. I can see that." For a moment, Alex was stunned. A job. The idea felt surreal. He had always worked hard, but he had never thought that someone like Mia, someone with so much more than he had, would offer him an opportunity like this. "I don't know," he began, unsure if he could even meet the expectations of such a job. "Just give it a shot," Mia urged, her tone gentle but persistent. "You won't know unless you try. You've got nothing to lose." Alex thought for a moment. The idea of a stable job, something that could pull him out of the cycle he had been stuck in for so long, seemed almost too good to be true. But Mia's offer felt genuine. She believed in him, and for the first time in a long while, he felt like he had a chance. "Okay," he finally said, his voice steady now. I'll give it a try. Great. Mia's voice brightened. I'll arrange everything. You'll hear from me soon. After the call ended, Alex sat back in his chair, staring at the phone in his hand. His thoughts were racing. Was this really happening? Could this one offer change everything for him? He had always dreamed of something better, but he had never known where to begin. Now, Mia had given him a path, an opportunity he couldn't ignore. For the first time in a long while, Alex felt a spark of hope in his chest. Maybe, just maybe, this was the break he had been waiting for. A few days after his conversation with Mia, Alex found himself standing in front of a tall building in the heart of the city. His hands were slightly sweaty, and his nerves were on edge. This was it, the opportunity he had never imagined would come his way. A job interview at a business firm, something far beyond his usual deliveries and simple tasks. His whole life had revolved around small, manageable jobs, but this was a chance to step into something larger, something that could change everything. He had spent the last few days preparing, trying his best to get ready for this moment. He borrowed a jacket from a friend, something that looked professional enough. Though it wasn't quite the right fit, still, it made him look presentable. He practiced what he would say, trying to keep calm, to remind himself that he could do this. But as he walked into the lobby of the building, all those preparations seemed to melt away under the pressure of the moment. The receptionist, a woman in a neatly pressed suit, greeted him with a smile. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I'm here for an interview," Alex said, his voice a little more nervous than he had hoped it would be. "I'm Alex, and I'm supposed to meet with Mia." She checked something on her computer screen and nodded. "Right this way. Mia is expecting you." As they walked down the hallway, Alex tried to steady his breath. He had been in interviews before, though they had been for small temporary jobs. But this one was different. This time, it felt like the stakes were higher. Mia had already said that she believed in him, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he had something to prove, not just to her, but to himself. When they reached the office, the door was open, and Mia was there, sitting at a desk. She smiled warmly when she saw him. "Alex, you made it. I'm so glad to see you." Her kindness immediately put him at ease. "Thanks for giving me this chance," he said, stepping inside. Mia gestured for him to take a seat. "I'm happy to. You've got the skills. I know you do. You just need the right opportunity, and I think this could be it." Alex sat down, trying his best to hide the nervousness that was still bubbling inside him. Mia started asking questions, simple ones at first, asking about his background, his experiences, and his goals. As they spoke, Alex began to realize that the skills he had developed over the years, while simple and often overlooked, were valuable in ways he hadn't considered. His ability to problem solve on the fly, to stay calm under pressure, and to keep pushing forward, even when things were tough. All these traits were things that could be useful in a business setting. Mia nodded as he spoke, her eyes showing a mixture of encouragement and understanding. She asked him about how he dealt with difficult situations, and he told her about the time he had handled a challenging delivery in the rain, managing to get the package through despite all odds. It was a small example, but it felt real to him. "Exactly," Maya said with a smile. "Those are the qualities we need here: problem solving, quick thinking, and perseverance. You've got those in spades." Alex felt a rush of relief. The more they talked, the more he felt like he belonged here, like this was where he was meant to be. Mia's faith in him wasn't just about giving him a chance. It was about seeing potential that he hadn't even realized he had. It made him want to push even harder, to prove that he was capable of more than just surviving from day to day. As the interview wrapped up, Maya stood and extended her hand. "I think you'll be a great fit, Alex. We'll be in touch soon, but I'm confident this is just the beginning." Alex shook her hand, feeling a sense of accomplishment he hadn't felt in years. He had walked into this building unsure of himself, but he was leaving with a newfound sense of hope. This was more than just a job offer. It was a chance for something bigger, something he had only ever dreamed of. As he walked out of the building, the weight on his shoulders felt lighter. For the first time in a long while, Alex felt like his future wasn't just something to survive, but something to look forward to. A few days after his interview, Alex received an email from the company. It was official. He had gotten the job. The excitement he felt was overwhelming, but he tried to keep his emotions in check. This was a huge step, but it also came with the weight of expectations. He had never worked in an office before, let alone in a company like this one. But there was something about it that excited him, the chance to grow, to learn, and to build a life that was different from the one he had always known. On his first day at work, Alex dressed in his best clothes, trying to look as professional as possible. He didn't have many work clothes to choose from, but he made do with what he had. He couldn't help but feel out of place as he walked into the sleek, modern office building. The marble floors, the glass walls, and the sound of busy professionals walking briskly to their destinations, all of it felt foreign to him. It was a far cry from the busy streets he was used to, where he was just another face in the crowd. As he made his way to the elevator, Alex tried to calm his nerves. The doors opened, and he stepped inside, pressing the button for the floor where he would be working. When the elevator doors closed, it felt like everything was moving in slow motion. He wasn't sure what to expect, but he knew he had to prove himself. When he arrived at his new office, Mia was waiting for him. She greeted him with a warm smile, making him feel at ease. "Welcome to the team, Alex," she said. "I'm so glad to have you here. Don't worry, you'll get the hang of things soon." As the day went on, Alex met the other people he would be working with. They were all friendly and welcoming, though he could sense that they were curious about the new guy, especially when they learned that he had come from a completely different background. Alex wasn't sure how to explain where he had come from or why he had decided to take this leap, but he felt a sense of pride. He was there now, and that was what mattered. The work itself was challenging but rewarding. At first, he felt a little overwhelmed. There were so many new systems to learn, new tools to use, and new ways of doing things. It was a steep learning curve, but Alex was determined to succeed. He spent his days reading up on everything he needed to know, asking questions, and working through problems. The more he learned, the more confident he became. He had always been a hard worker, and now he was applying that same dedication to a new set of skills. Mia was there every step of the way, offering guidance and encouragement. She had a way of making him feel like he belonged, even when he doubted himself. Whenever he made a mistake, she was quick to offer constructive feedback, but she also made sure to point out what he was doing well. Her support gave him the confidence to push through the challenges, even when things got tough. As the weeks passed, Alex began to feel more comfortable in his new role. He was becoming more efficient, more knowledgeable, and more confident in his abilities. He still had a long way to go, but he could see the progress he was making. It wasn't just the job that was changing him, it was the way he viewed himself. For the first time, he felt like he was building something meaningful, something that was worth working for. Outside of work, Alex's life began to shift as well. He found himself thinking about the future more often, about what he wanted to achieve and how he could make his dreams a reality. The possibility of a different life, a life that was no longer defined by survival, but by choice and opportunity, was beginning to feel real. And it was all thanks to the chance Mia had given him. But Alex knew that he couldn't take this opportunity for granted. Every day, he reminded himself to keep pushing forward, to keep learning, and to never forget the value of hard work. He had come from humble beginnings, but now, with each passing day, he was becoming someone who was capable of achieving more than he had ever imagined. And as he looked ahead, he couldn't help but wonder what other possibilities awaited him. As time passed, Alex settled more comfortably into his new role at the company. The unfamiliar office environment had started to feel like home. What had once seemed intimidating and overwhelming was now just another part of his daily routine. He had come a long way since that first day, and although there were still many challenges to face, he felt like he was finally on the right path. Mia continued to be a steady source of support, always offering guidance and encouragement when he needed it. She had become more than just a colleague to him. She was someone he trusted, someone who believed in him even when he had doubts. Her faith in him had made all the difference. Every time he stumbled, every time he felt like he wasn't good enough, Mia was there, reminding him of his potential. Alex had always been self-reliant, used to managing on his own. But here, he was learning the power of teamwork and mentorship. His colleagues were also starting to notice the changes in him. At first, they had been unsure about the new guy, the one who had come from a completely different background. But as the days turned into weeks, they began to respect him. He wasn't just a hard worker, he was a problem solver. He wasn't afraid to ask questions or admit when he didn't know something, but he always made an effort to learn and improve. One afternoon, as Alex sat at his desk, working on a new project, his mind began to wander. He thought about how far he had come. Just a few months ago, he had been a courier, rushing through the streets, hoping to make ends meet. Now he was in an office, contributing to important projects and planning for the future. He realized that it wasn't just his job that had changed, he had changed. The Alex that had walked into that office building for his first interview was a different person from the one sitting at his desk now. He had gained confidence, not just in his abilities, but in himself. He had proven that he could overcome his fears, that he could rise above his circumstances. And with each new task he completed, he felt a growing sense of pride in his work. But even though things were improving, there was still something missing. Alex had spent so much time focused on his job, on proving himself, that he hadn't allowed himself to fully think about the future beyond work. He had gotten comfortable in his role, but now the question lingered in his mind. What else could he do? Where could he go from here? That evening, as he walked home after another productive day at the office, the thought seemed to stay with him. The future was wide open, and for the first time in a long time, he felt like he could take control of it. He had always felt like his options were limited, but now he saw possibilities everywhere. He wasn't stuck anymore. Alex had worked hard to get where he was, and he knew that he wasn't done yet. There were still more opportunities to seize, more challenges to face. He wasn't sure what the future would hold, but he was no longer afraid of it. He had already made it this far, and now there was nothing stopping him from reaching even greater heights. As he reached his apartment, Alex paused for a moment, looking out over the city. The lights below seemed to stretch on forever, just like the opportunities that lay ahead of him. He smiled to himself, feeling a sense of gratitude for everything he had achieved and everything that was yet to come. The journey was far from over, but he knew one thing for certain. He was ready for whatever came next. As the weeks turned into months, Alex's life continued to change in ways he hadn't imagined possible. The progress he had made in such a short time was incredible. His work at the company had become more fulfilling, and he was gaining the respect of his colleagues. He had once feared that his background would hold him back, but now he was proving that hard work and determination could lead him to places he had only dreamed of. One afternoon, Mia called him into her office. As he walked through the door, he noticed that she was smiling at him. There was something different about her expression, as if she had something important to share. "Alex," she began, "I've been watching you closely these past few months. You've really grown here, and it's clear that you've got the skills to take on even bigger challenges." Alex was taken aback. He had always admired Mia's ability to recognize potential in others, but hearing her say this made him feel both proud and humbled. "I think it's time we talked about your future here," she continued, her tone warm but serious. "You've done more than just meet expectations. You've exceeded them. I'm recommending you for a promotion. You've earned it." For a moment, Alex could hardly believe what he was hearing. A promotion. He had started as someone who was barely sure he could fit into this world, and now Mia was telling him he had earned a spot at the next level. The weight of her words didn't hit him right away, but when it did, a wave of excitement and disbelief washed over him. "Thank you, Mia," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "I never imagined this could happen. I honestly didn't know if I could do it, but with your support, I felt like I could keep going." Mia's smile widened. "You did it, Alex. You believed in yourself when it wasn't easy, and that's why you're here. And I'm proud to have been a part of your journey." The promotion was a big step, and Alex quickly realized that it wasn't just about the position. It was about the trust and confidence that came with it. He was no longer just trying to survive or get by. He was building a future, one that was full of promise and potential. As the days went on, Alex took on new responsibilities with enthusiasm. His colleagues looked to him for guidance, and he found himself mentoring others, just as Mia had once mentored him. It was an incredible feeling to be in a position where he could share the lessons he had learned and to see others grow as they faced their own challenges. Outside of work, Alex's life was also evolving. He found himself surrounded by friends who believed in him, people who encouraged him to keep pushing forward. He had started to see his life as something more than just a series of obstacles. Now it was a story of growth, of perseverance, and of embracing the opportunities that came his way. Late one evening, as he sat on his balcony, looking out at the city lights, Alex felt a deep sense of contentment. The struggles of his past had shaped him into the person he was today, but they no longer defined him. He had the power to shape his own future, and he was excited to see where it would take him. He had come from a place where he never expected anything good to happen, but now he was living proof that with hard work, determination, and the support of people who believed in him, anything was possible. His journey wasn't over, but it had only just begun. Alex closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the cool breeze on his face. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just surviving. He was living, and he was ready for whatever the future had in store. The path ahead was wide open, and Alex knew that, no matter what, he would face it with courage and confidence.